Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming to the stage the President of the German Marshall Fund, Dr. Alexandra de Scheffer.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor to welcome you all to the 20th edition of Brussels Forum. As the new president of the German Marshall Fund of the United States, I join you at a time of both challenges and opportunities for the transatlantic relationship. As we mark 2 decades of this unique gathering, it's important to ask ourselves, what have we learned from the past 20 years? How can these lessons inform our response to today's challenges, but also help us shape the future? The agenda of this forum is designed to help us answer these questions and set the course for the next chapter of transatlantic cooperation. Over the past 20 years, we have learned that our partnership is strongest when we are honest about our differences, when we are adaptable in the face of change, and unwavering in our commitment to our shared values. We have also seen that democracy, prosperity, security are not guaranteed. They must be renewed, they must be protected, they must be defended, they must be reinvented, year after year, generation after generation. Key lessons from the Brussels Forum include, number 1, issues and geographies increasingly intersect. And this requires new forms of collaboration and certainly more agile responses from transatlantic partners. Number 2, we have also been realizing that collaboration is harder than expected. Despite a clear need for collective action, transatlantic and international cooperation remains difficult, remains tricky. And very often, competition prevails over cooperation. Number 3, the rise of new actors. And many of you in the room represents these actors who are also playing an important role in shaping the transatlantic relationship. Cities, non-state actors have become more prominent in diplomacy and problem solving. And so GMF has been increasingly including these voices into our conversations. Number 4, dialogue and partnerships with other powers beyond the transatlantic core. This is essential in order to tackle global issues like climate change, like conflict, but also supply chains. And very often, the transatlantic relationship is not sufficient. It requires to be creative and pragmatic. And lastly, but not the least, honest, sustained, open dialogue is extremely important and critical for understanding each other, but also for addressing some of these complex challenges ahead of us. Now, looking ahead, and I really want us during these 2 days to look ahead. I want us to have a forward-looking vision. The challenges before us are very complex. Shifting political dynamics, both in Europe and in the United States. Shifting global power dynamics on the international scene. Rapid technological change. And the evolving expectations of our citizens in Europe and in the United States. And the intersections between national security, economic security, technological innovation make GMF's role and work even more critical than ever, and it makes this gathering even more relevant than ever. I also want us to think not only challenges, but opportunities, forward-looking and opportunities. Because these disruptions actually demand new thinking, agility, but also clarity of purpose. Politicians, business leaders, engaged citizens across the Atlantic are urgently calling for a reassessment, a rebalancing of US-European relationships and cooperation. And that's why GMF matters. GMF matters, and it matters to be here in Brussels today, because the initiative will need to come from here, from Europe. It's Europe's moment. It's Europe's moment to step up when it comes to security and defense. It's also Europe's moment to maybe rethink some of its bureaucracy and regulations, right? Simplify, because the challenges are accelerating and require quick responses. The old playbook no longer works. We need fresh thinking of how we collaborate as transatlantic partners. We need to focus on our shared interests and to turn them into joint action. And for that, obviously, you need trust, and you need mutual trust. Now, GMF, as a nonpartisan transatlantic organization, headquarters in Washington, D.C., 7 offices, 2 representations across Europe, is uniquely positioned to shape these conversations and to shape the future of the transatlantic agenda. Over these past months, along with General Curtis Scaparrotti, former secure but also a trustee of our board, and I co-chaired a transatlantic task force, bringing together an exceptional group of thought leaders, business leaders, policymakers, tech innovators, entrepreneurs, leading experts from across sectors, regions, generations, political affiliations, to exactly develop concrete, actionable recommendations for rebalancing and strengthening the transatlantic alliance over the next 5 years. And so we've asked the members to look beyond the immediate concerns and to project the transatlantic relationship in the 5 years to come. And I think that's really our task, is how do we prepare now for the future? And how do we focus on US-European shared interest so that we can anticipate the challenges to come? And so we've been working on security and defense, on industrial project, on innovation, on competitiveness, but also alliance building. This report will be released next week ahead of the NATO summit. I'm very happy to have a lot of task force members here present in the room, and so we will be happy to share some of the key findings and recommendations throughout the side breakout events and the plenary sessions. So over the next 2 days, I am going to invite you all to engage openly, to listen carefully, and to chart the course for the next generation of transatlantic leadership. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your commitment for this enduring partnership. And to help us open this year's forum with the depth and perspective it deserves, I'm delighted to hand the floor to someone who has been a long guiding voice in transatlantic thought, Walter Russell Mead. Walter doesn't need any introduction, but I still will introduce him. He's a Distinguished Fellow in Strategy and Statesmanship at the Hudson Institute, the Global View columnist at the Wall Street Journal. He's a professor of strategy and statecraft at the University of Florida, and his work has shaped how we understand US foreign policy, global power dynamics, and he has been one of the most influential analysts of the Trump era often helping us make sense of the transformation we are witnessing in the US and in the world today. So we're very, very honored to have you with us, Walter. Walter, the floor is yours. And again, thank you for being here with us. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it's good to be here, although actually I feel a little bit like not comparing myself to him, but the prophet Daniel in the Bible, where he's peacefully watching TV or whatever he's doing, and somebody says, "Come on in, the king needs you." He goes in, and the moving finger has written on the wall where the Babylonians are feasting, "Mene, mene, tekel, upharsin," sen, and they want him to interpret it. And the interpretation is, you've been weighed in the balance, the U.S., the transatlantic relationship, and world order at a time like today, where things that we've been worried about for decades are coming to fruition, where we are still moving more slowly than our troubles are advancing toward us. If I wanted to be really dramatic, I would say that on the day of judgment, Neville Chamberlain will rise up and condemn this generation, because he, at least in 1938 at Munich, accelerated British rearmament. In 2014, we did nothing with Putin. 2008, we did nothing. Future generations will curse the names of the people who have been leading the United States and Europe in the last 30 years for willful blindness. What we are now looking at, it strikes me, is a war of European succession in the region. That is, as the U.S. has removed itself to some degree from the affairs of this part of the world, not completely, but to some degree, and the Europeans have sort of not managed to figure out how to fill the void. We've seen Putin in Ukraine is nibbling. A vacuum has formed. Nature abhors a vacuum. So Putin is moving in Ukraine. But he's also moving in Africa, where with the collapse of European influence and the withdrawal of the United States has opened a path. So the future in Africa today, an area where once European influence was dominant, we can argue about whether that was a good thing or a bad thing, is now a contest between Russia, China, Turkey, the UAE, and other countries of this kind who are moving into space where Europeans were once leading the way. Same, obviously, in Ukraine. The space of peace around the European Union is shrinking. We see Turkey today in Syria, and I think soon in Lebanon, replacing European influence in the Levant. Ask yourself what it might look like in 10 years or 5 years or less in Cyprus, which might become a frontline state in a resurgent Turkish move in the region. Russia is clearly not going to be content. Even we can think of Donald Trump in Greenland. This is sort of where the vacuum of European power exists. Others are moving to fill that void. We're witnessing, I think, a larger phenomenon, which is that the North Atlantic is no longer the axis of world politics. 5 years ago, it was startling to say that to people, but these days that's increasingly true. And just as when the Atlantic replaced the Mediterranean in the 16th century, this caused problems for Venice and Genoa, so the shift in world politics toward the Indo-Pacific and away from the North Atlantic is causing various problems for Europeans and for Americans. We talk more about the sort of security dimensions of this than we do about the ideological implications, but they are large. And that one of the ways that Europeans and Americans overcame our differences to cooperate during the Cold War and after was to talk about the ideological element of our partnership. We were trying international law, we're replacing the free flow of competition and often war that had characterized life in the past. That was all going away. Human rights, free markets, that was the future, and Americans and Europeans were building it together. Europe was the mom of the global power company, couple, that is, the United States was the dad with the hard power, and then Europe was mom with soft power, and so when dad sent Iran up to bed without any supper, mom would come along later with a plate of cookies and some milk and try to talk Iran in. But the two of them were united in a vocation of global transformation that is simply not on the table anymore. It doesn't mean that values have gone away, but it means that the anchoring European and American foreign policy in a common move essentially to westernize the world is no longer viable. And that's going to make it harder on both sides of the Atlantic to build a political consensus for the kinds of things that need to be done. So when we talk about Europe's future role, and I know I'm coming to the end of the 7 minutes I had to share with you the future of the world, so I'll make this quick. What do we need to do? I would say Europe thankfully has begun the process, or at least begun to talk about the process of military rearmament. Absolutely necessary. But let me add something to that. Moral and political rearmament. Soft power is almost infinitely less important than hard power in the world in which we live. An iron fist works a lot better with a velvet glove. But an iron fist without a velvet glove can still get a lot of things done, while a velvet glove without an iron fist is a contemptible rag. That is where many of us are today. We cannot stay there unless we want people who care nothing for our values, our civilization, or anything else that we hold dear, unless we want to hand the power over about our common future to these people. Thank you very much.